I took on Jaxson, the notorious playboy everyone thought I was obsessed with. He skipped classes, picked fights, and I was always there covering for him, taking notes, and pulling him back on track. For 3 years, I played the part of his loyal shadow, pouring everything into helping him land a spot at a prestigious university. But right before orientation, he cast me aside. Looking down at me with that smug grin of his, he said, "I know you've been into me forever, but you're too uptight, too buried in books. Chloe is different. Let's break up. I'm choosing her." The crowd waited for me to collapse. Instead, I glanced at my phone. The transfer had just arrived, $50 million. Smiling sincerely, I replied, "All right, congratulations." No one knew the truth. My so-called devotion had never been love. It was a deal with his mother. And now that the job was done, I was free to leave. She just got dumped by the campus heartthrob and said, "Congratulations." She didn't even last a minute before ending the call. So cold. She must be devastated inside, right? She doesn't look devastated. If anything, she looks relieved. All eyes turned to Jaxson. With his arm draped around Chloe, his face was visibly darkening. Someone quickly spoke up. "Everyone knows Eileen's been crazy about him for years. She's probably hiding her pain. She'll come crawling back soon enough. I bet she'll be begging him within 3 days." That made Jackson's expression soften. "If she does, maybe I'll forgive her. We'll see." I didn't hear any of this. I was too busy hauling my suitcase toward the train station. And even if I had, I would have just smiled faintly. If my parents hadn't believed girls were worthless unless married off young, if they hadn't shredded my acceptance letter and left me bruised and broken under my father's fists, I never would have agreed to Mrs. Sterling's bargain. Tutor her wayward son into an elite school, and in return she'd cover my tuition and pay me $50 million. That was the only reason I stayed by Jackson's side all those years, enduring everything in silence. 3 years of effort and I delivered. He got into his dream university. The money was in my account. My job was over. Why would I mourn his new girlfriend? From the start, all I wanted was escape. Freedom. A life that was mine. Love was never part of the plan. When orientation came, I didn't show up. My parents never would have let me go anyway. They saw me as nothing more than a bargaining chip. So I chose to disappear completely. That summer, I threw myself into language exams, aced IELTS, reached B2 in French, and submitted my study abroad application. By the time I boarded a plane to Paris, Jackson's messages started flooding in. "Why did you block me? Eileen, stop sulking. Even if I'm with Chloe, we're still friends. Unblock me." His arrogance bled through every word, convinced I would bend, as I always had. I snapped my SIM card in half and tossed it in the trash. With it, I discarded every ounce of humiliation and pain from the past. The plane cut through the clouds, erasing that chapter of my life. Later, my best friend told me Jaxson had been leaving comments under my old posts. Things like, "Still mad over nothing? Come on, it's just a breakup. Add me back already." She said at first he thought I'd return, but when I didn't, his temper flared. Just hearing my name made him scowl. To me, it was nothing more than a stranger's drama. I felt no spark of emotion. In Paris, I poured Mrs. Sterling's payment into a new life. I enrolled in a top design academy, facing the language barrier, the workload, and the unknown with only my sketchbook and determination at my side. Years slipped by. My designs found recognition, winning awards at fashion weeks, catching the eyes of major brands. Eventually, I became chief designer for Lumina, tasked with leading their Asia-Pacific expansion. On my first day back home, while grabbing lunch near the office, I heard a hesitant voice behind me. "Eileen, is that really you?" The room fell silent, the chatter and snide laughter freezing midair. Tiffany's confident smile faltered. What did you just call her?" she snapped, her voice rising as she turned to her assistant. Sarah shrank back under the glare, fumbling with the scattered documents and bowing her head as she rushed to apologize. "I am so sorry, Miss Sue. I didn't realize you were here. Please forgive the disturbance. I'll pick these up immediately." The word, Miss Sue, echoed through the private room like a stone tossed into still water. The same classmate who had just mocked me for supposedly marrying rich nearly choked on their own spit. "Wait, Miss Sue? Which Miss Sue?" Sarah hesitated, glancing at Tiffany before finally answering. "She's Ms. Eileen Sue, chief designer of Lumina and head of its Asia-Pacific division. The very person Ms. Tiffany has been trying to secure a partnership with." The revelation landed like a thunderclap. Brittany's smug grin vanished. Classmates who had just looked down on me now scrambled to change their tune, their expressions flipping from contempt to frantic admiration. "Oh my god, your luminous chief designer?" Of course, I always knew Eileen had real talent. She was brilliant even back in school. This outfit, you can tell it's true international style. "Miss Sue, you're incredible. Do you remember me, Eileen? I sat behind you in class. You've made us proud." The flood of exaggerated compliments was almost comical, syrupy and desperate, far sweeter than anything they had showered on Tiffany earlier. As for Tiffany herself, her face was drained of all color. Her earlier offer to find me a cleaner job was now nothing more than a cruel punchline. And Jaxson. His shock finally gave way to speech. His gaze locked on me, his expression complicated. "Eileen, I should have known you'd still be this remarkable." In that moment, his girlfriend seemed to vanish from his line of sight. I listened to the hollow praise around me, a wave of irony rising before fading into exhaustion. Then Brittany's bitter voice cut through the air like venom. "So, what if you're a fancy designer now? Everyone knows about your leech of a family. They caused such a scandal back then, disgraced the whole school. You think they'll leave you alone now that you're rich? They'll drain you dry until you've got nothing left." Her words struck at the ugliest part of my past. I calmly lifted my water glass, took a slow sip, and set it back down. "My family is a past I couldn't choose," I said evenly. "But every step since then has been mine. Every cent I've earned has been clean. Every path I've taken one I can own with pride. Whether my position is stable or not, that's for me to worry about, not you." With that, I rose from my chair. This reunion has been enlightening, but I have other matters to attend to. "Excuse me." I gathered my jacket and turned toward the door. "Eileen, wait." A tall figure stepped into my path, pulling me aside into the stairwell. His familiar scent hit me before his grip did. Jaxson. He blocked my way, his eyes burning into mine. "Why did you leave without saying a word? Why block me everywhere?" His expression, full of wounded indignation, almost made me laugh. "The task was finished," I said coolly. "There was no reason to stay in touch." "Task." He frowned, clearly refusing to understand. He leaned closer, voice urgent, almost pleading. "You left because of Chloe, didn't you? You must have been heartbroken. That's why you ran away abroad." His gaze searched my face for sadness, but there was none. "Eileen, I actually looked for you," he admitted suddenly, his voice dropping. "You've always mattered to me." For a split second, a faint memory stirred. Those rare moments when he wasn't insufferable. When he'd quietly listen as I explained a problem, or when he sat silently while I treated his bruises. But those moments were buried long ago under years of ridicule, his friends' taunts, and his own arrogance. So I looked at him squarely and said, every word sharp and steady, "Jaxson, my leaving had nothing to do with your girlfriends. And to be clear, the only reason I stuck by you was for your family's money." His face twisted, his voice rising in denial. "Impossible. You're lying. For 3 years, I tried to give you things, money, gifts, and you refused every time. You wouldn't even take a pen from me. Don't tell me it was all about money." His certainty was almost childlike, as if those tiny details proved he understood me. I couldn't help a soft laugh. "You really are naive." "What's that supposed to mean?" I no longer bothered to explain. Stepping past him, I left without looking back. Behind me, his voice echoed through the stairwell. "Eileen, I know you have your pride, but give me time. I'll deal with everything around me. I'll give you a real answer, a real confession." I didn't pause, not even for a second. It didn't take long for the inevitable to happen. Some so-called helpful former classmates spread word of my return and of the fortune I'd earned to the people I least wanted to see. My parents. Their instincts for money were sharper than a scavenger's nose for carrion. A few days later, they showed up at my company. Their shabby clothes clashed against the sleek glass building, their faces twisted with greed. "Eileen, you ungrateful girl," my father bellowed. "You get rich and forget who raised you? You worthless ingrate," my mother shrieked, collapsing onto the lobby floor. "We sacrificed everything for you, and you repay us with nothing." She slapped her thighs and wailed, crocodile tears and smeared makeup completing the performance. My father slammed the front desk with his fists, shouting for everyone to hear. "Look. She struts around dripping in gold while her own parents starve. Tell us, how much do you make a month? Hand it over. It's Evan's family money. Their eyes latched onto me like claws, treating me as nothing more than a treasure chest on legs. The guards tried to step in, but my father shoved them aside. The scene was spiraling into chaos when Jaxson appeared, a bouquet of roses in his hands. His brows furrowed as he hurried forward. Mr. and Mrs. Evans, please calm down. This is a workplace. You're making things worse for Eileen. He turned to me, his tone softening, as if to reassure me. Don't worry, I'll handle it. Whatever they want, I'll pay it for you first. Jaxson, darling. The syrupy voice came from behind him.
Tiffany.
At some point she had slipped in, now hooking her arm through his as if to stake her claim. Her eyes swept over my parents, then settled on me with smug delight. Why are you still defending her? She purred, loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. Don't you know she's been lying to you all along? She let the tension build before delivering her blow. Eileen never chased you out of love. She took $50 million from your mother to tutor you into college. Once the job was done and the money in her pocket, she disappeared. That's the truth behind her little, heartbreak abroad story. She bought herself a glamorous life and a shiny title with your family's money. Gasps rippled through the room. My parents' eyes lit up like lanterns at the number. 50 million? My father roared, practically foaming at the mouth. You little leech, that's mine. Hand it over right now. Even my mother stopped her fake sobbing, scrambling to her feet to lunge at me. And Jaxson. The bouquet slipped from his hands, petals scattering across the polished floor. He turned to me, his face pale, disbelief written across every line. Eileen, is it true? His voice cracked, desperate. Was everything you did for me, every note, every word of care, was it all for money? The shouting, the gasps, the chaos around us faded into silence. Everyone's eyes were fixed on me. I looked him straight in the eye and gave a single, steady nod. Yes. It was like extinguishing the last flicker of light in his eyes. His lips parted in a pained whisper. Then, did you never like me? Not even a little? I didn't flinch. For a moment I did. But the second you turned my devotion into a joke, you lost the right to it. I walked past him without a backward glance. Security arrived to drag my parents out, their voices echoing behind me, still howling for their share. As I expected, they didn't stop there. The calls and abusive texts piled up. Then they hired shameless influencers to live stream outside my company, shouting into their phones. International designer Eileen Sue. Heartless. Unfilial. Abandoned her poor parents after pocketing $50 million. They even filed complaints at the social services office, painting me as an ungrateful daughter who had grown wings and flown away. The accusations spread online, twisting the truth until strangers spat my name like poison. But I was no longer the powerless girl they once controlled. My legal team fired back with lawsuits and evidence. My PR firm dismantled their lies and redirected the narrative. This time, I was ready. At the same time, the PR team I had hired began reshaping public opinion and setting the record straight. The strongest blow, however, came from the witnesses I presented. My former homeroom teacher testified in detail about how my parents had tried to sabotage my education. Several longtime neighbors, who had watched me grow up, confirmed the years of neglect and abuse I endured at home. One elderly neighbor, a sharp-tongued grandmother, even slammed her hand against the table, her voice trembling with anger. Shameful. Eileen wasn't even 18 when they tried to sell her off to a widower from the next village, just for a dowry. That man was older than her father. If she hadn't run, her life would have been destroyed. The forensic report documenting my injuries sealed the case. Public opinion shifted almost overnight. In the end, I legally severed ties with my so-called parents, finally tasting real freedom. Meanwhile, Tiffany found Jaxson in the corner of a dimly lit bar, drowning himself in liquor. Jaxson, darling. She rushed to him dramatically, trying to wrestle the bottle from his grip. Please stop this. Look at what you've become. Is Eileen worth destroying yourself over? Seeing you like this breaks my heart. Jaxson looked up at her, his eyes red from drink, her perfectly painted face swimming in his blurred vision. Breaks your heart? Does it really? He repeated the words slowly, almost mocking, before leaning closer, his voice edged with bitterness. Then tell me, Tiffany, do you love me for me? Or for my money? For a split second, panic flickered across her face, but she quickly smoothed it over. Of course not. I love you for who you are, not for wealth or status, she insisted, reaching for his hand. but Jaxson shoved her away harshly. Not for money, he sneered. Then why now? Your company just lost its deal with Lumina. Your cash flow is collapsing, and suddenly you run to me. The color drained from Tiffany's face, her eyes darting away in guilt. He didn't need her answer. He already knew. Get out, he ordered coldly, pointing to the door. Both you and your lies. Fuming, Tiffany stomped her heel, grabbed her bag, and stormed out of the bar. Jaxson sank back into the couch, his head pounding. Through the haze of alcohol, memories crashed over him, pulling him back to a sunlit high school hallway. A girl in a faded, hand-mended uniform stood stubbornly in his path, clutching a worn workbook. Her smile was cautious but determined as she faced him and his friends, who were ready to sneak off for a fight. Her voice was timid, yet firm, ringing in his ears as if no time had passed. Jaxson, don't fight. And how had he answered back then? He had shoved her aside impatiently, called her a busybody, mocked her as a bookworm and a charity case, before striding away to the sound of his friends' cruel laughter. Truthfully, Jaxson had noticed her long ago, back in their school days. Eileen had always been the teacher's pride, the top student, diligent and brilliant. Yet her poverty, her patched uniform, and her quiet determination made her an easy target for mockery. Jaxson, the campus golden boy, adored by everyone, had secretly admired her. But he cared too much about appearances. He feared the ridicule that would come from liking the poor little bookworm. That unspoken attraction twisted into cruel teasing, sharper than anyone else's. Deep down, he convinced himself that no matter how recklessly he treated her, no matter how many times he trampled her dignity, all it would take was a snap of his fingers, and Eileen would still be there, waiting. Now, sitting alone in the ruins of his pride, Jaxson laughed bitterly, then broke down in tears. He finally understood. He had never been worthy of her affection. As for me, Eileen, I had already shed the weight of my toxic family and my painful past. Under my direction, Lumina's Asia Pacific operations surged forward with unstoppable momentum. My designs, alive with originality and vision, captivated the high-end market. One successful launch after another, glowing reports and rising sales, steadily secured my standing and influence. I had come to realize something profound. Only by standing tall on your own can you claim true freedom. The Eileen of yesterday endured 3 silent years to earn a ticket out of hell. The Eileen of today builds her future with talent and relentless effort, chasing her dreams in a vast world she carved out with her own hands.